Timothy McVeigh was executed for the bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma City 20 years ago this weekend. 168 people, including 19 children, were killed.
I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda.
April 19, 1995, Oklahoma City. A massive explosion tore through the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, ripping apart the city's skyline and instantly killing 168 people, including 19 children. It was the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in American history, and its architect was an unassuming, soft-spoken man from rural New York, whose final hours on Earth were just as cruel as the vicious act he committed. Here are the final 24 hours of famous terrorists.
Well, one of the most wanted terrorists in the world is now dead.
After years of tracking him, armed forces sent 2 missiles from a drone flying above the Afghan capital, Kabul, which killed him instantly.
At 6:18 a.m. on July 31st, 2022 in Kabul, Afghanistan, 2 Hellfire missiles from a U.S. drone struck the balcony of a 3-story safe house. At that moment, al-Qaeda's longtime leader, Ayman al-Zawahiri, met his end, marking the close of a dark chapter in global terrorism. But who exactly was he? Born in 1951, al-Zawahiri grew up in Cairo's privileged circles. His family was steeped in both medical and scholarly tradition. But from age 15, his path diverged sharply. He formed an underground cell dedicated to overthrowing the Egyptian government and establishing an Islamist state. Seeds of radicalization that would grow into global infamy. By the late 1970s, Zawahiri had earned a medical degree and served as an army surgeon, but his true calling lay elsewhere. Through the 1980s, he transitioned from physician to militant leader, ultimately merging his Egyptian Islamic Jihad group with Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda in 2001. He became bin Laden's right hand and the chief ideologue behind the organization's most devastating attacks. Zawahiri's influence shaped al-Qaeda's global reach. He was linked to the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombings in East Africa, the USS Cole attack in 2000, and of course the September 11th attacks. His ability to inspire and coordinate terror made him America's most wanted man after bin Laden's death in 2011, earning a $25 million bounty. But Zawahiri's leadership style differed markedly from bin Laden's charismatic presence. He was more intellectual, less of a battlefield commander. Charisma-free al-Zawahiri was running al-Qaeda into the ground, according to CNN analyst Peter Bergen. Yet his influence endured, particularly through a steady stream of video and audio messages that continued up to his final days. For years, American intelligence agencies hunted Zawahiri across Afghanistan and Pakistan's tribal regions. Early attempts to capture or kill him failed, most notably a 2006 airstrike that missed its target. But the hunt never stopped. By early 2022, U.S. intelligence tracked his movements to Kabul, where he felt secure enough to appear regularly on the balcony of his safe house. The final operation was months in the making. President Biden authorized the strike a week before its execution. American agents meticulously verified Zawahiri's pattern of life, including his daily balcony routines, to ensure no civilian casualties. The chosen weapon, the R-9X Hellfire missile, was specifically designed to minimize collateral damage. When the missiles struck, Zawahiri was alone on the balcony. There were no civilian casualties. His family members, present in the house, were unharmed. The surgical precision of the strike demonstrated both technological advancement and the relentless pursuit that defined modern counterterrorism efforts. In the immediate aftermath, President Biden addressed the nation. Justice has been delivered. The world's most wanted terrorist was dead, not with a thunderous explosion, but with the clinical efficiency of modern warfare. But Zawahiri's death, while symbolically significant, occurred at a time when al-Qaeda's influence had waned. New extremist groups like ISIS had eclipsed its global reach. Even within the jihadist world, Zawahiri's leadership was increasingly seen as marginal and remote. The Taliban's harboring of Zawahiri in Kabul, however, violated the Doha Agreement and raised serious questions about Afghanistan's future as a terror safe haven. His presence in the heart of Kabul, under Taliban protection, underscored ongoing security challenges in the region. In the days that followed, al-Qaeda remained silent about his death. Only later did they release an undated video, suggesting he may have recorded messages shortly before the strike. But if you think this story ends here, the next chapter takes us even deeper into the tangled web of global extremism, from Zawahiri's calculated terror to the next unpredictable threat.
This is Abu Bakr Shekau, the leader of the feared Boko Haram militant group.
Shekau, who had assumed leadership following the death of Boko Haram founder Mohammed Yusuf in 2009, reportedly blew himself up during conflict with rival Islamic State in West Africa group ISWAP in the Sambisa forest in northeast Nigeria.
May 19, 2021. Deep within the tangled undergrowth of Sambisa forest, the final act of Abu Bakr Shekau's reign unfolded with the press of a detonator. He was a man who, for over a decade, had built a reputation as Africa's most elusive terrorist leader, constantly outwitting security forces, surviving countless assassination attempts, and turning Boko Haram into an international symbol of fear. Shekau's last stand, however, wasn't against government troops. Instead, it was his own rivals from the Islamic State West Africa province, ISWAP, who finally cornered him. Shekau's journey to infamy began in the dusty villages of Yobe State, northeastern Nigeria. Born in 1973, he was the son of a local imam. His early life a study in contrasts. Described as quiet and studious by some, others remembered him as a radical even in his youth. He moved to Maiduguri as a boy, where he became an almajiri, begging for food and attending religious school. Over time, his brilliance with theology became apparent. He reportedly had a photographic memory, a trait that served him well in later years as he twisted religious doctrine to suit his brutal ideology. His ascent through Boko Haram's ranks was swift. After its founder, Mohammed Yusuf, died in police custody in 2009, Shekau quickly filled the leadership vacuum. He wasted no time transforming Boko Haram from a local religious sect into a full-blown insurgency, his ruthlessness and strategic mind turning the group into a regional threat. Under his direction, Boko Haram's attacks grew in scale and savagery, spreading fear across northeastern Nigeria and into neighboring countries. By 2014, Shekau had achieved global infamy with the kidnapping of 276 schoolgirls from Chibok, a crime that stunned the world and gave rise to the hashtag #BringBackOurGirls movement. In a chilling video, Shekau laughed about selling the girls into slavery, a moment that defined his reign of terror for many. But that was only one of countless atrocities. Under his command, Boko Haram claimed over 30,000 lives and displaced more than 2 million people. Its bombings, kidnappings, and killings leaving a permanent scar across the Lake Chad region. Shekau's leadership style was as unpredictable as it was brutal. His bombastic propaganda videos, often featuring him brandishing weapons and boasting about his invincibility, became infamous for their mix of religious rhetoric and graphic threats. He ruled through fear, frequently executing his own commanders and religious advisors when they challenged his authority. Internal dissent was met with swift, deadly retribution, leading to numerous splinter groups and violent purges within Boko Haram's ranks. His relationship with international terror groups was equally complex. In 2015, faced with growing pressure from his commanders, Shekau reluctantly pledged allegiance to ISIS, briefly rebranding Boko Haram as ISWAP. But his erratic behavior and extreme tactics soon alienated ISIS leadership. By 2016, ISIS had officially replaced him with Abu Musab al-Barnawi, sparking a bloody split that pitted Shekau's loyalists against the new ISWAP faction. While ISWAP focused its attacks on military targets, Shekau's group continued its indiscriminate violence against civilians, deepening the divide. Throughout his reign, Shekau cultivated a near-mythical reputation for invincibility. He was reported dead at least 6 times, only to reappear in new videos mocking his enemies. Each supposed death only added to his legend until May 2021. when reports of his demise finally proved true. Cornered by ISWAP fighters in Sambisa Forest, he chose suicide over capture, detonating a vest that killed both himself and a senior ISWAP commander who was negotiating his surrender. Shekau's death marked the end of an era, but not the end of violence in northeastern Nigeria. His demise created a power vacuum that ISWAP quickly moved to fill, absorbing many of his former fighters and consolidating its control over the region. The Nigerian military, which had struggled for years to eliminate Boko Haram, found itself facing a more unified and arguably more dangerous adversary in ISWAP. In the weeks following his death, Boko Haram's remnants confirmed Shekau's demise through a video statement, urging followers to remain loyal. Leadership of the group quickly fractured, with various commanders compete for control. By 2022, an obscure figure known as Abu Umaymata emerged as Boko Haram's new leader, but the group's power had waned considerably. And as the dust settled in Sambisa Forest, it became clear that Shekau's death was both an ending and a new beginning. While his personal reign of terror was over, the conflict he helped create continued to evolve, its future uncertain, but forever shaped by the man who once claimed he enjoyed killing, the way I enjoy slaughtering chickens and rams. But if you think Shekau's story ended with a simple explosion in the forest, wait until you hear the story of Timothy McVeigh, an American domestic terrorist who masterminded and perpetrated the Oklahoma City bombing.
The deaths of the 168 people who died in the April 1995 Oklahoma City bombing were violent, unexpected, and mourned by millions. Today, the man who killed those people died on schedule by lethal injection.
Because of his appeal, one of the conditions his lawyer laid down was that we not ask him directly, "Are you the Oklahoma City bomber?"
Maybe one of the benefits of me talking to you today is that you'll see that maybe not everything is true that you've heard about me.
Timothy McVeigh tried to rewrite the story of his own evil, right up until the end. He wanted you to believe he wasn't pure evil, that he wasn't the face of terror. But those who saw the devastation of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City knew better. McVeigh grew up a seemingly ordinary middle child in rural upstate New York. But long before he killed 168 people, including 19 children, his mind had twisted around anti-government conspiracies and white supremacist propaganda. In the Army, he earned a Bronze Star in the Gulf War, but after dropping out of Special Forces training, he became obsessed with the idea that federal agencies were the enemy. The Oklahoma City bombing was meticulously planned. For months, McVeigh and his accomplice, Terry Nichols, gathered massive amounts of explosives. They chose April 19, 1995, the anniversary of the Waco siege. That morning, McVeigh parked a Ryder truck packed with explosives in front of the Murrah building and walked away.
He wouldn't write about the bombing, but he made no bones about the fact that he hated the federal government.
Before the bombing, McVeigh wrote letters that revealed his deep hatred for the federal government. But he never wrote about the act itself, a calculated omission that spoke volumes about his mindset.
Are you prepared for death?
I am. I came to terms with my mortality in the Gulf War.
That cold detachment was on full display throughout his trial and imprisonment. His violence wasn't an impulsive act. McVeigh carefully selected the target, even considering other buildings before settling on the Murrah building. He claimed ignorance about the daycare center inside, but investigators found evidence that he knew about it and didn't care.
In truth, from my psychological perspective, it's a little easier being on death row because you know how you're going to die. You can narrow down where you're going to die.
McVeigh's attitude on death row was eerily calm. He claimed that knowing exactly how and when he would die made things easier for him. This chilling acceptance only deepened the horror for his victims' families. In prison, McVeigh wrote about mundane topics, his favorite TV shows and movies, displaying a disturbingly normal side that clashed with his monstrous crime. This is a hallmark of sociopathic behavior, as one journalist who corresponded with him noted. But the real Timothy McVeigh wasn't the man who chatted about the Simpsons in prison letters. He was the terrorist who parked a truck full of explosives under a daycare center, timed the blast for maximum casualties, and then walked away as 168 lives were erased in an instant.
He'll be somewhere, but we are going to be going through just as much hell as Timothy McVeigh for the rest of our lives.
For the families of his victims, McVeigh's execution brought little comfort.
But sitting down here now, and let me make clear, I'm not sitting here trying to influence you, and I'm not putting on a game face. I'm not conning anybody. I'm just being me.
Even in his final interviews, McVeigh maintained the pretense of honesty and transparency. But his actions spoke louder than any words. 168 innocent people dead, hundreds more injured, and a nation forever changed. Timothy McVeigh's execution in 2001 was the first federal execution in nearly 40 years. But his twisted legacy endures as a reminder of how hate, paranoia, and conspiracy theories can lead to unimaginable violence.
I mean, the Tim McVeigh who committed the bombing was not the Tim McVeigh I saw.
The final 24 hours of Timothy McVeigh's life were marked by the same cold calculation that defined his crime. But nothing he said or did in those last moments could ever balance the scale of justice for what he took away on April 19, 1995.
Timothy McVeigh was executed at Terre Haute on June 14, 2001.
As McVeigh faced his own end, the world was reminded of the 168 lives he ended without mercy. His attempt to control his narrative failed, because the truth of his evil was written in the blood of his victims, not in his carefully crafted words. The Oklahoma City bombing remains the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in U.S. history, a grim warning of the destructive power of hate-fueled extremism. But while McVeigh tried to rewrite his own story until the very end, the real narrative belongs to those who survived, those who lost loved ones, and a nation forever changed by his terrible act.
Most people in this country think you are the face of evil, don't they?
Most people in this country still see Timothy McVeigh for what he truly was, the face of evil. And no amount of calculated calm or prison letters could ever change that brutal reality.
Target identification. He's taller than I thought, skinnier. His beard was kind of gray and short. That's definitely his nose. I've seen that face. That's bin Laden. He's not surrendering. I shot him 3 times, or twice in the head as he was standing up, and once more on the ground.
May 2nd, 2011, Abbottabad, Pakistan. The world's most notorious terrorist, Osama bin Laden, was about to meet his end in a dramatic midnight raid by U.S. Navy SEALs. For years, bin Laden had managed to evade the world's most powerful intelligence agencies. After orchestrating the September 11 attacks, he had become the most wanted man on the planet, with a $25 million bounty on his head. American intelligence agencies had spent nearly a decade hunting him, following leads that often led to nothing but dead ends. But in 2010, a breakthrough came when U.S. intelligence tracked a trusted courier to a mysterious compound in Abbottabad, just a mile from Pakistan's military academy. The location was unusual. This wasn't a remote cave in the mountains, but a walled compound in a relatively affluent neighborhood. The 3-story structure was surrounded by 18-foot-high concrete walls, topped with barbed wire, and it lacked any internet or phone connections. The inhabitants burned their trash rather than setting it out for collection. After months of surveillance, the CIA became convinced the mysterious pacer, the tall man never seen outside, was bin Laden himself. President Obama faced a difficult decision: launch a risky helicopter assault, bomb the compound, or involve the Pakistani government, which risked tipping off bin Laden. The plan was set. Operation Neptune Spear would be a precision strike by SEAL Team 6, launched from a base in Afghanistan. On May 1, 2011, 2 modified Black Hawk helicopters lifted off, carrying 23 Navy SEALs, an interpreter, and a military dog named Cairo. As the helicopters approached the compound under the cover of darkness, things almost went wrong. One of the Black Hawks crashed as it attempted to land inside the compound's walls, likely due to higher than expected air temperature and the enclosed courtyard. But the SEALs quickly adapted, rushing out and beginning their assault. The SEALs moved methodically through the compound, clearing rooms and securing women and children. On the third floor, they found bin Laden, unarmed, but not surrendering. Initial reports differ on the exact sequence, but bin Laden was shot twice in the head and killed instantly. The SEAL team leader radioed the now famous words, "For God and country, Geronimo, 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 Ikea." The raid lasted just 38 minutes. Bin Laden's body was immediately identified using facial recognition software, measurements, and later DNA testing. Before leaving, the SEALs gathered a trove of intelligence, computers, hard drives, and documents that would prove invaluable in tracking al-Qaeda operations. With one helicopter down, the team destroyed the wreckage to protect classified technology and loaded bin Laden's body onto a backup Chinook helicopter. They returned to Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, and by morning, President Obama addressed the world, announcing bin Laden's death. In accordance with Islamic tradition and to prevent his grave from becoming a shrine, bin Laden's body was buried at sea within 24 hours from the deck of the USS Carl Vinson. Muslim religious rites were performed, and his body was weighted and slid into the Arabian Sea. The news sparked celebrations across America and much of the world. Crowds gathered outside the White House and at Ground Zero in New York City. But while most of the world welcomed justice for the 9/11 attacks, reactions in the Muslim world were mixed. Al-Qaeda confirmed bin Laden's death and vowed revenge, but many saw it as the closing of a dark chapter. The raid itself was a triumph of intelligence, military precision, and international cooperation, though it strained already tense relations with Pakistan, as the operation was carried out without their knowledge. In the aftermath, U.S. forces analyzed the massive intelligence haul from the compound, uncovering al-Qaeda plans and communications. The death of Osama bin Laden dealt a significant blow to global terrorism, but his organization's ideology survived, scattering into various affiliated groups. The final 24 hours of Osama bin Laden marked the end of a decade-long manhunt and brought a measure of closure to the families of nearly 3,000 victims of the September 11th attacks. His death wasn't just the conclusion of a military operation. It symbolized a new chapter in the fight against terrorism. But the world quickly learned that while bin Laden was dead, the threat he created was far from over.
Last night, the United States brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead.
October 26, 2019, near midnight in the village of Barisha, Idlib province, Syria. The head of the so-called Islamic State, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, was cornered by U.S. Special Forces after months of relentless intelligence gathering. This moment would mark the culmination of the world's hunt for one of its most wanted men. Baghdadi's journey to this dead-end tunnel began years earlier. Born Ibrahim Awad Ibrahim al-Badri in 1971 in Samarra, Iraq, he was one of 6 children in a devout Sunni family. He earned a master's and later a PhD in Islamic studies from Baghdad's Saddam University. Yet his academic credentials contradict the violent path he would ultimately choose. After the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq, Baghdadi became involved in the growing Sunni insurgency. His time at Camp Bucca, a notorious U.S. prison, helped him build connections across jihadist networks. By 2010, he had taken control of the Islamic State of Iraq. The chaos of the Syrian civil war provided the perfect storm for his ambitions. In 2013, he merged his group with Syrian extremists, birthing what the world would come to know as ISIS. Every step Baghdadi took was calculated. His lone public appearance in Mosul's Great Mosque in July 2014, declaring himself Caliph Ibrahim, shocked the world. He claimed a vast caliphate stretching across Iraq and Syria, drawing recruits from around the globe. Under his leadership, ISIS unleashed a reign of terror marked by brutality, enslavement of minorities, and global terrorism. But as ISIS's territory shrank, Baghdadi retreated into the shadows. By 2019, he was rarely seen, relying on a tight security network and multiple layers of protection. Intelligence agencies from the US, Iraq, and the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces spent months piecing together his whereabouts. Key breakthroughs came from captured ISIS couriers, family members, and a smuggler who had previously helped move his relatives. The final breakthrough came from within his own organization. A trusted ISIS operative turned informant for the Kurdish SDF. This spy provided not only detailed plans of the compound, but even managed to steal Baghdadi's underwear for DNA testing, confirming his identity. On the night of October 26th, 8 U.S. helicopters carrying Delta Force operators and Army Rangers flew 70 minutes through hostile airspace, coordinated with Russian and Turkish forces to avoid unintended clashes. As they approached, they encountered gunfire from non-ISIS militants in the area, which was quickly neutralized by supporting airstrikes. Surrounding the compound, U.S. forces called for surrender in Arabic. 11 children and several women emerged and were detained. But Baghdadi, with 2 children, fled into a tunnel beneath the building. A military working dog named Conan pursued him to a dead end. Cornered and refusing to be captured, Baghdadi detonated a suicide vest, killing himself and the 2 children. U.S. forces retrieved his remains and confirmed his identity through rapid DNA analysis, using samples from his earlier imprisonment. The aftermath was swift. 2 adult male captives were taken, and a trove of documents and electronic devices seized, providing crucial intelligence about ISIS's remaining structure. The compound was then destroyed by airstrikes to prevent it from becoming a shrine. Baghdadi's death was announced by President Trump the following morning, though some details of his account were later disputed by military officials. The Pentagon confirmed he had been buried at sea with Islamic rites. The operation marked a significant blow to ISIS, but didn't end its threat. Baghdadi's successor was quickly named, and the group's decentralized structure allowed it to continue operations, albeit at a reduced capacity. Also, his death drew international reaction. Allies praised the operation, while even rivals acknowledged the significance. However, Iran and Syria's Assad regime downplayed its importance, claiming the ISIS threat had not truly ended.